When a woman lives alone and still owns her sexuality, the world doesn't just judge her, it panics. It panics because nothing destabilizes the old structures more than a woman who refuses to trade her body for approval, her desire for validation, or her presence for safety. From childhood, society quietly teaches her a dangerous narrative. A woman alone must be incomplete. A woman who desires must be reckless, and a woman without a man must be lacking. But what if the opposite is true? What if her solitude is not emptiness, but fullness? What if her desire is not disorder, but sovereignty? This is not a story about excess. It is not about rebellion for the sake of rebellion, and it is not about loneliness. This is a story about wholeness, about a woman who stopped outsourcing her sense of self and instead turned inward to claim what was always hers. Carl Jung called this process individuation, the lifelong journey of integrating the parts of ourselves that society taught us to repress. Few parts have been repressed as systematically and as ruthlessly as female desire. For centuries, a woman's sexuality has been allowed only under conditions: married, approved, contained, sanitized. Her body could be admired, but not owned; expressed, but not directed; desired, but not sovereign. So when a woman lives alone and remains connected to her sexual energy without performing it for anyone, confusion follows, judgment follows, fear follows. She does not fit the script. She cannot be easily categorized as virtuous or reckless, healed or broken. She exists outside the familiar boxes, and that alone threatens people's sense of order. She is not chasing intimacy. She is not numb to desire. She is not starving for touch. She understands something most people never confront. Desire does not disappear in solitude. It becomes conscious. When no one is watching, when no one is demanding, when no one is consuming her attention, her relationship with her body changes. It stops being transactional. It stops being reactive. It becomes internal, grounded, and intentional. Carl Jung warned that when instinct is denied, it does not vanish, it mutates. Repressed desire turns into anxiety, compulsion, and attachment. This woman chose another path. She did not suppress her desires, nor did she let them control her. Instead, she faced them. She faced the fear of being unwanted, the craving to be chosen, and the belief that intimacy must be earned through sacrifice. She stayed with herself in silence. She grieved, she reflected, she integrated. That integration is what makes her solitude feel different. It is not isolation, it is regulation. It is not denial, it is discernment. She does not fear desire, nor does she obey it blindly. She owns it, and that balance is what unsettles people most. People are comfortable judging women who need to be completed, women who give themselves to fill voids, women who perform for approval. But a woman who is sexually sovereign and emotionally independent is unpredictable. She cannot be controlled through shame or expectation. She has loved before, deeply, completely, to the point of self-erasure. She has stayed in situations where her needs were minimized and her boundaries negotiated away. She has confused intensity with intimacy, attention with connection. She has begged for crumbs that never should have been offered. And yes, that hurt. Slowly, quietly, in swallowed words, in delayed reactions, in moments where she chose harmony over truth. Until one day, something shifted, not dramatically, not loudly, just a quiet realization that settled into her nervous system. This is not love if I have to disappear to keep it. That realization did not make her cold. It made her awake. Awakening is uncomfortable. Awakening demands responsibility. It asks you to stop blaming the past, to stop romanticizing pain, and to face yourself without distraction. She turned inward, and there, in the silence, she encountered her shadow. Carl Jung described the shadow as everything we reject, deny, or disown within ourselves. For her, that shadow included desire, independence, anger, and sexual agency qualities society taught her to soften, suppress, or outsource. She didn't run. She stayed. She listened. She grieved. And slowly, she healed. Now, people mistake her calm for indifference, her boundaries for arrogance, and her selectivity for fear. But what they are witnessing is emotional maturity. She no longer negotiates her worth. She no longer entertains ambiguity disguised as mystery. She is not impressed by chemistry without consistency, or desire without depth. She wants reciprocity, presence, and truth. Her sexuality is no longer a performance. It is internal alignment. She does not need to display it to feel real, nor deny it to feel safe. She carries it quietly, like a current beneath the surface, alive, but not leaking, powerful, but not chaotic. Jung believed that psychological health is not about eliminating opposites, but integrating them. Light and shadow, desire and restraint, independence and intimacy. She embodies that integration, and that is why she seems unreachable to some. Not because she is difficult, but because she is whole. And wholeness is intimidating. Her solitude is not absence, it is presence. Her desire is not recklessness, it is sovereignty. She has learned that being alone does not diminish her power, it amplifies it. The world, however, struggles to comprehend this. For centuries, society has thrived on controlling women's desire, dictating when it is acceptable, who it is offered to, and how it must be contained. A woman who lives alone, fully aware of her sexuality, violates these unwritten rules, and that violation triggers discomfort, suspicion, and often silent condemnation. Carl Jung taught that what we repress in ourselves does not vanish. It emerges as shadows in our interactions. This woman has faced her shadow. She has confronted her fears, her past wounds, and her long-held beliefs about love, desire, and worth. She has asked herself difficult questions. Why do I seek validation? Why do I allow myself to shrink? Why have I given my energy to people who never recognized it? And she did not turn away. She stayed with herself. She listened. She reflected. She integrated. And through this process, she became sovereign not just in body, but in mind and spirit. Her sexual energy is no longer a tool for external approval. It is a measure of self-awareness. She does not use it to manipulate, nor does she suppress it out of fear. She knows that desire is natural, powerful, and sacred. She treats it with respect because she treats herself with respect. Her solitude allowed her to cultivate this awareness, to understand that intimacy is a choice, not a necessity. That passion is a reflection of alignment, not obligation. That satisfaction cannot be outsourced. The world finds this unsettling. People are conditioned to think that a woman must be dependent to be lovable, that intimacy is incomplete without attachment, that her body is currency, and her consent a negotiation. But a woman who has integrated her shadow, who owns her desire, challenges these assumptions. She refuses to shrink for approval. She refuses to barter her essence for acceptance. She refuses to let external expectations dictate her rhythm. And that refusal, though silent, shakes the structures around her. She has loved before. She has given too much. She has waited for people who never arrived. She has begged for crumbs that should have never existed. She has compromised, minimized, and ignored her own instincts to satisfy others. That is the foundation upon which her independence now stands. And while some may interpret this as bitterness, pride, or emotional damage, those who understand Jungian psychology see it differently. They see the result of conscious individuation, a soul that has faced its own darkness and emerged whole. Her calmness is a mirror. It reflects not weakness, but clarity. It is intimidating to those who measure worth by dependency or who fear the autonomy of another. And yet, she does not flaunt her power. She does not declare her sovereignty to impress or provoke. She simply lives it. In her posture, in her voice, in the way she occupies space without apology. The world labels her selective, cold, or unreachable, but what they are really witnessing is a woman who knows her boundaries and refuses to compromise them. In her solitude, she experiences the full spectrum of her sexuality. She acknowledges desire without shame. She engages with passion without fear. She explores connection without losing herself. She does not seek validation in attention, nor does she allow her energy to be consumed by those who cannot meet her depth. Instead, she chooses carefully, intentionally, consciously. Jung described this as the integration of instinct with consciousness, a harmony between what is natural and what is ethically and emotionally wise. She embodies that harmony. This integration does not isolate her from the world. It situates her within it differently. She moves through life with an awareness that most have never cultivated. She sees the duplicity of social expectations, the hollow promises of conventional relationships, the performative gestures of those who have never looked inward. And she chooses to step aside from all of it, not in withdrawal, but in discernment. Her energy is a filter. Her desire is a compass. Her presence is authority. Those who are threatened by her often attempt to define or diminish her. They call her cold, selfish, or difficult. They project their own fear of independence onto her, mistaking confidence for arrogance. But she is not here to conform. She is not here to explain herself. She is here to be. And being, in its purest form, is revolutionary. Because a woman who has claimed her body, her desire, and her mind refuses to be reduced to a stereotype, a need, or a narrative written by someone else. And perhaps the most radical act of all is her patience. She does not rush intimacy. She does not chase fleeting attention. She waits, not out of pride, but out of respect for herself. Not out of fear, but out of understanding that only what aligns with her truth is worthy of her energy. She has seen the consequences of compromise. She has felt the cost of ignoring herself. And now she honors the slow rhythm of her own evolution. Her sovereignty is not aggression. It is presence. It is quiet. It is deliberate. And in that quiet, she has discovered a power that the world does not know how to contain. A power that, according to Carl Jung, arises when the shadow is integrated, instincts are honored, and consciousness is fully awake. She is alive to herself, fully, unapologetically, and irresistibly. A woman who lives alone and claims her sexuality has learned a lesson most never do. True intimacy begins with self-respect. She has loved before, deeply and fully. She has given herself to people who could not recognize her worth, who demanded compromise, who minimized her presence. She has been attracted to intensity that masqueraded as connection, to passion that disguised neglect. She has begged for crumbs of attention that should have never existed. And in that journey, she discovered the cost of losing herself for someone else. Carl Jung described the individuation process as a journey through the unconscious, where one confronts their shadow and integrates the disowned parts of themselves. For this woman, the shadow included her desire, her independence, her anger, and even the parts of her sexuality that society labeled inappropriate or dangerous. She faced these shadows, not with denial or avoidance, but with courage. She acknowledged them, understood their origin, and made peace with them. That is the foundation of her maturity. Her emotional maturity manifests in boundaries. She no longer tolerates manipulation, deceit, or performative affection. She no longer confuses attention with intimacy or intensity with commitment. She has learned to say no without guilt, to walk away without regret, and to trust her own judgment over societal expectation. This is not coldness. It is clarity. It is presence. It is the power of someone who knows herself and refuses to surrender that knowledge for approval. Society struggles with women like her. A woman who does not bend, who does not beg, who does not shrink for love or attention, challenges the unconscious patterns that have governed relationships for centuries. Carl Jung noted that what we deny in ourselves, we project onto others. For many, seeing a woman who owns her sexuality and autonomy forces reflection. It triggers discomfort because she mirrors the parts of themselves they have yet to integrate: desire, assertiveness, independence. She is not motivated by rebellion. She is motivated by integrity. She has endured betrayal, abandonment, and neglect, and she has chosen a different path, one of conscious presence. Her sexuality is not performative. It is not for validation, approval, or control. It is an expression of alignment. It is a reflection of knowing her worth. She engages with passion intentionally, choosing who she shares her energy with, when, and how. This sovereignty is subtle, but it radiates with undeniable authority. Her solitude is a sanctuary, not a punishment. It is a place to honor her instincts, explore her desires, and refine her inner landscape without interference. She is present to herself in ways most never learn. She has witnessed the effects of self-denial and compromise, and she refuses to repeat them. Her presence is an invitation to those who understand, and a boundary to those who do not. She does not need to justify her choices, explain her motives, or appease critics. She simply exists, and that existence carries weight. In relationships, she seeks reciprocity. She is no longer attracted to empty promises or performative gestures. She looks for consistency, depth, and authenticity. She measures connection not by words alone, but by presence. Jung believed that authentic relationships require individuation. Two whole people can come together without attempting to complete each other. That is the standard she holds herself and others to. She does not settle for anything less. The emotional independence she has cultivated makes her presence revolutionary. She moves through spaces without asking for permission. She engages with others without relinquishing herself. Her desires are hers to explore, her decisions hers to make, her body hers to honor. Those who have been conditioned to see dependency as attractiveness often misunderstand her. They may label her cold, distant, or unattainable, but she is neither. She is whole, aware, and awake. She has learned to love without losing herself, to desire without compromising, and to exist fully without apology. That awareness makes her fearless, not reckless. It makes her selective, not lonely. It makes her radiate a confidence that the world often misreads as defiance. Yet what appears to be defiance is simply the alignment of body, mind, and spirit, the integration of instinct, consciousness, and shadow, as Carl Jung described. And so she walks her path deliberately. Each choice, each pause, each refusal is an act of self-respect. She has seen the consequences of ignoring her truth. She has felt the pain of surrendering her presence for someone else's comfort. She will not repeat it. Her sexual sovereignty and emotional maturity are inseparable. Together, they form a fortress not to isolate her from the world, but to protect her essence, to preserve her power, and to honor her freedom. A woman who lives alone and claims her sexuality carries a quiet authority. She is not loud or performative. She does not seek attention, nor does she crave validation. Yet, her presence disrupts the assumptions of the world. For centuries, women have been taught that desire must be hidden, independence must be restrained, and intimacy must be earned through self-erasure. She has refused all of that. Her refusal is silent, subtle, and unmistakably powerful. Carl Jung taught that every aspect of ourselves that we deny becomes part of our shadow, often projected onto others. For many, the idea of a woman who is sexually autonomous and emotionally sovereign is terrifying because she reflects what they have refused to see in themselves. They project fear, judgment, and labels onto her. She is cold. She is difficult. She is unreachable. They say this because her life exposes their own dependency, their own compromises, their own unresolved desires. She, however, does not need their approval. She has faced the shadow that society tried to bury within her. She confronted her anger, her desire, her need for autonomy, and even her ambition to live fully on her own terms. She has integrated these parts, and in doing so, she discovered freedom. Her sexuality is no longer a source of shame or confusion. It is a source of energy, alignment, and creativity. She engages with it intentionally, without guilt, without performance, without external pressure. It is hers. She owns it. This ownership is what makes her terrifying to some. Because she does not submit, she cannot be controlled. Because she does not perform, she cannot be commodified. Because she lives from her center, she cannot be contained. And this creates a subtle fear in a society conditioned to see women as dependent, relational, and transactional. The very logic that structured female roles is dismantled by her existence. She does not need to explain herself. She does not need to apologize. She simply lives her truth, and that alone challenges centuries of expectation. Her shadow work extends into her relationships. She no longer tolerates manipulation, gaslighting, or emotional compromise. She recognizes unhealthy patterns immediately. Empty promises, performative gestures, or relationships that require her to diminish herself are no longer options. Her intuition has sharpened. Her boundaries have become precise. She can sense depth, honesty, and authenticity from afar, and she walks away from anything that does not align. Her sexual energy, once a potential liability in the hands of the unprepared, is now an instrument of self-respect. For many, this clarity is intimidating. Those who have not faced their own shadows feel exposed in her presence. They project discomfort onto her, labeling independence as arrogance, selectivity as coldness, and sovereignty as defiance. Yet she does not react. She does not argue. She does not justify. Carl Jung noted that the integration of shadow allows for strength without aggression. She embodies that principle. She radiates quiet authority that cannot be dismissed. Her solitude is not a punishment. It is a sanctuary where instinct, consciousness, and shadow converge. It is here, in this sacred space, that she has learned to differentiate between what is truly fulfilling and what merely distracts. Her desires are explored with respect, her body is honored with intention, and her presence is preserved without compromise. Every choice she makes is informed by awareness, not fear. Every refusal is an affirmation of her sovereignty. In this space, sexual agency is not casual. It is conscious. It is a reflection of alignment between body, mind, and spirit. She engages only when connection resonates, when energy matches depth, and when presence aligns with integrity. This is not lust without thought. It is desire informed by wisdom. It is intimacy without loss of self. And because she has integrated the shadow of desire, she no longer fears judgment or misinterpretation. She walks confidently within her own truth. The world, conditioned to see women as dependent and relationally incomplete, does not know how to respond. It whispers criticism, it passes judgment, and it attempts to redefine her value. But she has learned the ultimate lesson. No one can give you worth. Worth is claimed, cultivated, and embodied. Her sexuality, her independence, and her solitude are not deficits. They are affirmations of her completeness. And completeness is the most radical act of all. She is whole. She is awake. She is alive to herself. And in that wholeness, the world witnesses not chaos, rebellion, or defiance. It witnesses a woman who has claimed herself fully, whose presence challenges conventions, whose shadow is integrated, and whose sexuality is sovereign. A woman who lives alone and fully claims her sexuality carries a power most people do not understand. She does not announce it. She does not seek attention. She simply exists, and in that existence, she challenges centuries of unspoken rules about how women should behave, how they should desire, and how they should live. Her choices are deliberate, guided by awareness, not impulse, and that awareness is what unsettles the world. Carl Jung described the integration of shadow as the source of true authority. When we face our denied instincts, our disowned desires, and our suppressed emotions, we gain clarity. This woman has walked through that process. She has confronted the parts of herself that society told her to hide: desire, independence, assertiveness, even the raw expression of sexuality. She did not reject them. She did not dilute them. She embraced them, learned from them, and integrated them into her being. That integration is her inner authority. Society reacts with judgment because it is unprepared for this level of alignment. People are conditioned to measure worth through dependency, relational performance, and approval seeking. But she does not comply. She does not chase approval. She does not shrink herself to fit another's comfort. She exists fully, and that alone triggers a mixture of admiration and fear in those around her. Admiration from those who recognize the courage it takes to claim oneself. Fear from those who still live fragmented lives, waiting for others to define their value. Her relational dynamics have reversed. She no longer gives herself to fill voids or to satisfy societal expectations. She no longer confuses attention with intimacy or presence with approval. In interactions, she measures energy, authenticity, and alignment. She chooses who she engages with and how, not out of fear, but out of discernment. And this reversal is intimidating to those accustomed to traditional power dynamics, where desire and vulnerability are meant to be leveraged against her. She refuses to participate in such systems. Her solitude is not absence. It is a laboratory of self-discovery. In silence, she observes her instincts, examines her desires, and discerns her emotional responses. She learns which connections nourish her and which drain her. Carl Jung taught that facing our unconscious allows us to live consciously. She applies this daily, understanding that intimacy without alignment is hollow, and connection without respect is toxic. Her sexual agency is inseparable from this awareness. Desire is no longer something she surrenders to. It is something she wields consciously, with wisdom and integrity. People misread this clarity. They call her cold, distant, or even arrogant. They attempt to label her selectivity as fear, her independence as rebellion, and her patience as pride. But the truth is far simpler. She has faced herself. She has endured heartbreak, disappointment, and societal pressure, and emerged whole. Her calm is not apathy. Her boundaries are not cruelty. Her discretion is not shame. It is conscious sovereignty, the natural outcome of integrating shadow, owning desire, and refusing to compromise her wholeness. She understands that waiting is not weakness. She knows that refusing to lower her standards is not rigidity. She recognizes that desire must be aligned with integrity, and intimacy must emerge from mutual respect. Carl Jung believed that only whole individuals can engage in authentic relationships. She embodies that principle. Her sexual sovereignty and emotional maturity make her a mirror for others. She reflects the potential of living fully, consciously, and unapologetically. Her presence challenges habitual norms. It forces others to confront their own incompleteness, their unintegrated shadows, and their unconscious projections. That is why she evokes both admiration and fear. Some are inspired by her example, seeing that freedom is possible. Others feel threatened, unable to reconcile their dependence with her independence. But she does not aim to correct or teach. She simply lives. And in living fully, she rewrites the rules quietly, profoundly, and irreversibly. This reversal of relational dynamics extends to intimacy, desire, and connection. She does not chase. She does not plead. She does not compromise her integrity for affection. She chooses presence, alignment, and reciprocity. And in doing so, she demonstrates the Jungian ideal, a union of consciousness, instinct, and shadow that produces wholeness, clarity, and empowerment. Her sexual energy is no longer a tool for validation or a weapon against herself. It is an instrument of alignment, vitality, and self-respect. And perhaps the most radical act of all is her patience. In a world that rushes to claim, seduce, and conquer, she moves deliberately. Every touch, every connection, every intimate moment is measured by truth, depth, and presence. She does not accept less than what aligns with her integrity, and she has learned that anything less is not compromise, it is surrender. And she will not surrender. A woman who lives alone and embraces her sexuality has learned to cultivate a relationship with herself first. She understands that the most profound intimacy does not come from another. It comes from knowing herself, loving herself, and honoring her desires without compromise. Her solitude is not emptiness. It is a sanctuary where she nurtures her body, mind, and spirit. In that sacred space, she learns the rhythm of her own heart, the language of her own desire, and the depth of her own presence. Carl Jung described the process of individuation as the integration of all parts of the self, including shadow and instinct. For her, this means embracing her sexual energy as a vital part of her wholeness. She does not view desire as something dangerous, shameful, or external. She understands it, integrates it, and channels it intentionally. Her body is not a tool for validation, nor a weapon to manipulate others. It is a compass pointing toward alignment, pleasure, and self-respect. This conscious relationship with her sexuality transforms everything. She moves through intimacy differently. She engages fully, yet selectively. She feels desire deeply, yet does not surrender her boundaries. She shares herself only when presence, energy, and authenticity resonate. This is not about restriction. It is about sovereignty. She no longer allows fleeting emotions, societal pressure, or external judgment to dictate how she experiences pleasure or connection. Her sexual agency is a reflection of the respect she cultivates for herself. The world, conditioned to see women as reactive to desire and dependent on approval, struggles to comprehend her. People may whisper judgment, project fear, or label her as cold. Yet what they witness is not coldness, it is awareness. It is emotional and sexual maturity. Carl Jung taught that the shadow, when integrated, produces inner authority. She has faced the parts of herself society tried to suppress, her hunger, her longing, her unfiltered desires. By doing so, she has claimed authority over her body, her energy, and her presence. She also understands patience. In a culture that equates sexual availability with worth, she moves deliberately. Every connection is chosen. Every act of intimacy is conscious. She does not chase attention, nor does she settle for superficial presence. She has learned from past compromises, heartbreaks, and manipulations. Every no she gives is an affirmation of self-respect. Every refusal is a boundary reinforced by awareness. And every moment she spends alone is an act of alignment with her authentic self. Her sovereignty is not isolation, it is integration. She merges instinct with consciousness, desire with reflection, pleasure with discernment. She does not reject her sensuality to appear controlled, nor does she surrender her integrity for connection. Instead, she creates a space where her sexual energy is both a source of personal power and a reflection of her conscious awareness. In this way, intimacy becomes sacred, mutual, and deeply nourishing. People often misinterpret this as arrogance or emotional unavailability. They fail to see that her detachment from performative relationships is a product of self-love, not pride. She does not compromise because she knows the cost of surrendering herself. She does not perform because she understands that validation from others is fleeting, while alignment with oneself is lasting. Carl Jung emphasized that the unconscious must be integrated to achieve wholeness. Her conscious embrace of desire and presence is a living example of that integration. In her solitude, she also finds clarity about connection. She discerns between fleeting attraction and authentic alignment, between reactive desire and conscious intimacy. She engages with people who match her energy, honor her boundaries, and reflect the respect she embodies. Sexuality for her is a dialogue, not a transaction, a sharing of presence, not a submission to expectation. She has claimed her body, and in doing so, she has claimed her life. This integration transforms how she moves through the world. She does not seek approval or validation. She does not apologize for her desires or her presence. She radiates authority quietly, deliberately, and unmistakably. Jung wrote that wholeness is achieved when opposites are reconciled. She reconciles desire with integrity, presence with solitude, intimacy with independence. That reconciliation is visible to those who pay attention and incomprehensible to those who measure women by dependence or compliance. Her sexual sovereignty, cultivated in conscious alignment, is inseparable from her solitude, her maturity, and her inner authority. It is not rebellion. It is not performance. It is self-possession. And in that possession lies her greatest power, the ability to engage with the world fully, to love without losing herself, and to live without apology. A woman who lives alone, embracing her sexuality and sovereignty, has achieved a level of wholeness that the world rarely recognizes. She is no longer fractured by societal expectation, dependent on validation, or constrained by relational pressure. She has walked the path of self-discovery, faced her shadows, integrated her instincts, and emerged fully present in her own truth. This is not a story of loneliness. It is a story of liberation. Carl Jung described individuation as the process of becoming fully oneself by integrating all parts of the psyche, the conscious, the unconscious, the light, and the shadow. She has done precisely that. She has encountered her desires without shame, her anger without guilt, her independence without fear. She has reconciled the parts of herself that were previously denied, silenced, or suppressed. And in that integration, she has discovered freedom, freedom to love consciously, freedom to desire intentionally, freedom to exist unapologetically. Her solitude is not a retreat. It is a laboratory of empowerment. In silence, she observes herself, her choices, her desires, and her boundaries. She reflects on what she truly wants, what energizes her, and what diminishes her. In that reflection, she gains clarity. She no longer confuses passion with validation or intimacy with obligation. She moves deliberately, aligning her actions with her inner authority. Her sexual sovereignty and emotional maturity are inseparable. Each informs the other, creating a woman who is whole, awake, and aligned. The world often struggles to accept such women. Many feel discomfort, projecting their insecurities and unresolved shadows onto her. They label her cold, detached, or unreachable. Some admire her silently, recognizing the courage it takes to claim oneself fully. Others fear her because she mirrors what they have refused to face: autonomy, self-respect, and conscious desire. Jung emphasized that what we deny in ourselves emerges in our perception of others. Her existence forces reflection, confrontation, and sometimes resistance. In relationships, she has reversed the old paradigms. She no longer seeks completion from another. She no longer surrenders her power or diminishes herself to maintain connection. Instead, she engages in reciprocity. She chooses partners who honor her wholeness, who reflect integrity, presence, and awareness. She waits for alignment, not convenience. She engages when energy resonates, when desire aligns, and when connection respects boundaries. In this, she exemplifies the Jungian ideal: two whole individuals coming together, not to complete, but to complement. Her sexual energy, once a source of anxiety or external judgment, has become a tool of conscious self-expression. She no longer allows others to dictate how, when, or why she experiences desire. She engages in pleasure with intention, discernment, and integrity. She has learned that sexual sovereignty is inseparable from self-respect, emotional maturity, and inner authority. Her body, her energy, her presence, all are hers to honor. What she embodies is revolutionary in its quietness. She does not need to shout to be heard. She does not need approval to exist. She does not need validation to be complete. And in that quiet authority, she has shattered outdated myths about dependence, relational conformity, and female desire. She is living proof that autonomy, sexual awareness, and emotional maturity can coexist, creating a woman whose presence is both magnetic and formidable. Her journey is not without struggle. She has endured heartbreak, disappointment, and social judgment. She has felt the sting of misunderstanding, the discomfort of societal expectation, and the pressure to conform. Yet through it all, she has remained loyal to herself. Each decision to honor her boundaries, each act of conscious desire, each choice to embrace solitude, has strengthened her integration. She has learned that freedom is not granted. It is claimed. It is earned. It is embodied. In this embodiment, she radiates a presence that transcends superficial measures of value. She is whole. She is awake. She is sovereign. And in her sovereignty, she invites others to recognize their own capacity for wholeness. She is a mirror, a guide, and a living testament to what Carl Jung described as individuation, the conscious realization of the self in all its depth, power, and complexity. This woman has discovered that love, desire, intimacy, and connection are not external transactions. They are reflections of inner alignment, conscious choice, and self-respect. She engages with the world from a position of wholeness, not need. She desires without compromise. She connects without surrender. She loves without losing herself. And in this truth, she has become unstoppable. A woman who lives alone, embracing her sexuality and sovereignty, is not lost. She is not incomplete. She is not waiting for the world to grant her permission to exist fully. She has chosen herself. She has walked through shadows, confronted desires, integrated instincts, and emerged awake, whole, and radiant. Carl Jung described individuation as the process of becoming fully oneself, and she embodies it completely. She has claimed her wholeness, and in that claim, she has discovered the truest form of freedom. Her solitude is a sanctuary, not a sentence. It is where she nurtures her desires consciously, explores her presence intentionally, and honors her boundaries relentlessly. She does not compromise, and she does not apologize. Every decision, every act of intimacy, every choice to stand alone is a declaration. She values herself, and she will not surrender her integrity for temporary comfort or societal approval. Her life is an invitation to others to witness the power of alignment, the sovereignty of self, and the liberation that comes when shadow is embraced rather than denied. Her sexual sovereignty is inseparable from her emotional and spiritual freedom. She engages with desire consciously, choosing when, how, and with whom to share her energy. She has faced past betrayals, disappointment, and misjudgments, learning from them rather than being defined by them. In this awareness, she no longer fears solitude or societal judgment. She no longer accepts relationships that diminish her, nor gestures that are performative or hollow. She has cultivated discernment, and that discernment protects her power. The world often misunderstands such women. Some call her cold, distant, or arrogant. Others admire quietly, seeing the courage it takes to claim oneself fully. Both reactions stem from a confrontation with truth, her truth, and with what society has denied itself. Jung noted that projection happens when individuals refuse to face their own shadow. She is the mirror, reflecting both the possibilities of wholeness and the discomfort of unintegrated selves. And she does not waver. She does not respond with defensiveness or explanation. She simply continues, anchored in her authenticity. Her freedom, however, is not isolation. She has cultivated depth, presence, and connection, but on her terms. She values reciprocity, honesty, and alignment. She loves without losing herself, desires without compromise, and connects without surrender. Her relationships are conscious, intimate, and anchored in mutual respect. She has learned that true love is not about filling emptiness, but about celebrating completeness. She is whole, and her connections reflect that wholeness. For those who resonate with her journey, there is inspiration. For those who fear it, there is a challenge. She reminds the world that a woman does not need to conform to be valuable. She does not need a partner to be fulfilled. She does not need validation to exist fully. Her life demonstrates that sovereignty, self-respect, conscious desire, and wholeness are not only possible, they are transformative. And so, if you feel a stirring within you while hearing this, a spark of recognition or a quiet question rising in your chest, it is not coincidence. It is the echo of the part of yourself that longs for awareness, presence, and freedom. She is not an abstraction. She is an archetype. She is a living testament to what it means to claim your selfhood, to honor your instincts, and to embrace your desires consciously, as Carl Jung envisioned in his writings on individuation and shadow integration. If this message resonates, share it. Let other women and men who seek understanding see this story. Let it ripple through awareness. Subscribe, comment, and like, not because the world tells you to, but because you choose to celebrate strength, sovereignty, and presence. Because the most important love begins within. The love that comes after is not for validation, it is for overflow. And the woman who has chosen herself, again and again, knows this truth deeply. She walks alone, yet she is not lonely. She is free, whole, and radiant. And that freedom, that sovereignty, and that wholeness are the greatest acts of courage anyone can witness. This is the journey of an awakened soul. This is the power of claiming oneself fully. And this is the essence of what SYC Soul celebrates.